Hey guys, Rob from Georgia here with you, aka VHS 82 apostrophe with episode number, yes, I had to look, I'm sorry, I'm tired, 16 of my Crazy Fives. This one, geez, did I even come up with a title for this one? I don't know what I'm going to call it. It's deleted scenes. I got to come up with a good title. I don't know. It's deleted scenes though. I was in a bit of a pinch. I was trying to think of the next one and I had a couple ideas, but none of them were really gravitating to me. And then suddenly this one just fell into my lap. And I thought, wait a minute. And there was one in particular, and we'll get to it in there because it's in my top 5. Remember, everything's chronological, so we go by year downward. So sometimes it shakes out in a pretty real way for me. Sometimes it's not perfect, but I don't want to waste time thinking about what should be first and not first, or number 5 versus number 2, whatever. But this one, you already know what's outside looking in. We are talking deleted scenes. And I don't know when's the last time you just had nothing better to do than file through deleted scenes. You might get surprised from time to time as well. My number 1 selection I hope it did for me. It was a surprise. That one I just sort of stumbled into. So let's go. Deleted scenes. This is, and this will make Lonnie happy, right? 4K. This is my 4K edition of Jaws. What the menu screen up there is DVD, but this menu screen doesn't last forever, so I just throw the menu screen for this looks outstanding till it disappears into its universal thing. Anyways, Jaws, a deleted scene. There's 2 actually. And a lot of character building in some of these deleted scenes, some of which I wish were just left in. And I guess I'll be a little bit more vocal as we run through, but there's one scene in particular which I thought of, and I wanted Jaws to be my outside looking in. The catalyst for this idea, though, I think is number 5. But I thought Jaws has to be outside looking in. And the scene I absolutely love, man, and you've probably seen it, but it's Quint goes into town, I think for some supplies, goes into that one store, and that kid is in there playing the flute or something. He gets his flute and he's just starting to test it out and play it. And I know it's a classical tune he's playing, but Quint starts to, with his voice, he's standing behind him, and he just starts to echo ever so softly at first, but then it starts to gain and thunder, and he overwhelms the kid at the point where the kid is playing, and finally the kid's just like, it's just, I don't know. It's funny because it's a curious look into Quint's character that you really don't get. I don't know if you get in the movie, but you sort of kind of get this idea that he does like to mess with people. And we do see that with him and Hooper, right? And that is a fun scene. But the whole collage of scenes is actually pretty fun to meander through. But the other one connected with him towards the end is, what was his name? It's a weird name. Salvatore. Okay, he's the, he's his helpmate, Quint's helpmate that we see, the little guy. I guess he was a real fisherman. He did not want to do this, and they somehow conned him into it. And that's why he just has this sort of, I don't want to be here right now. I don't want anything to do with this right now. And he just sort of get that vibe. And I never understood it until I was reading a little more in the trivia, I think, on IMDb, maybe, about it. But he comes in to see Quint in his, this is before they're about to, I think, load up the ship to head out to go kill this monster. And he comes in to tell him that he's not going, man. He's not going after with him to chase some crazy shark, and that he's, Quint's nuts and crazy and all that. And Quint, man, he gets mad. And he just like, you son of a, he's just like, grab your crap off my boat. You're beached. It's just like, it's just awesome, man. And so you just go from this 1 minute, he's, just pushing the buttons on this kid, man, playing this flute in the store. And then next he's just telling this guy, man, you're just beached, man. And it's so funny to see in the movie, this guy just sort of trail behind him like a lost puppy or something. And really he is in real life because he don't want to be there. It's so funny. But outside looking in, Jaws, by the way, was first released on VHS by MCA Universal. Big surprise, right? And we know Steven Spielberg, this is the monster of all monster movies. And so that's my first deleted scene, but it's definitely worth a look-see. All right, so number 5. First, actually, no VHS release. It's a newer film, and apparently, it is number 1 on the Netflix chart right now. I think somehow it's just redrawing people back in, and people are suddenly having a different opinion about this movie. Maybe, of course, I've always had somewhat of the same opinion. I was an apologist for it initially. I still am to a degree, but there's parts of it, and I'll just get into it, man. At number 5 from 2017 from directors Alexandre Bastillo, Julien Moore. Of course, we know them from the French duo team from Inside, The Deep House, which is so freaking great. If you've never seen The Deep House, you got to see The Deep House. And Among the Living, which is fantastic, right? But Leatherface was their call to do a prequel that, well, I don't know if it was intended to bring you up on the doorstep of the Sawyer house for the original 74 film, but really there's enough room between this film and the 74 film. You could have actually done another one in between the two. But it does actually serve as a original prequel to the original Sawyer family. And it does have an interesting, and the only way these guys can do it, a really beautiful aesthetic. It was shot. It's just so beautiful to look at. Most of their movies, I mean, their movies are beautiful to look at. But we're talking deleted scenes, right? It's Grandpa. Okay, so the alternate beginning and the alternate end. If you've never seen those, if you're an enthusiast or an apologist for TCM2, which I am, this is worth having, if not for the alternate opening and ending scenes, which should have, in my personal opinion, bookmarked this film. I think we'd be talking about a sort of a different movie. Obviously, there's other flaws, my flaws, that I take not exception to. That's the wrong way to phrase it. I'm kind of disappointed. But it's Grandpa, man, and it's the opening scene is so beautiful. It's 1,000 million times better than the birthday scene, I think. But you follow, it must be Jackson, small little Jackson. It's in the 50s, I think. He's going out. Here's Grandpa's out in the pig pen, and he's about to sledgehammer a pig and gut the pig. But you got the sun is coming. I mean, it's just such a beautifully shot scene. That only these guys could do it. And you see, you ultimately see Grandpa hit the pig, and you see the pig get slammed up on the thing and the chainsaw. You don't actually see it being ripped open. You see the after effect. But it just it harkens to something that the film without it or its end is really missing. And that it really, I don't know. I mean, I could just go on and on. But the alternative end as well, where you see, okay, so Jackson, man, Jackson's of course all messed up now, and who's the girl? Lizzie, I think it was Lizzie, isn't it? I haven't seen this in a while. But Lizzie is, she's down there on the floor, man. He's got the chainsaw, and Mom is there egging him on, do it. Grandpa, man, is just quietly sitting in his chair. And I think you actually see him holding a sledgehammer, and it's just like, oh man, this ain't gonna end well for her. And all he can do is bring this chainsaw down into her leg, and then he just lets it stop. And you sort of kind of get this point where, okay, well, he's in without like really being in, because he just doesn't want to mutilate this girl. This girl's like the only thing he had real feelings for, right? But it harkens to that scene in TCM2, actually. Johnson's moment with Stretch, and where he just doesn't want to harm her. And so I thought it was interesting how the two slightly sort of... Anyways, so Grandpa's had enough, man. Grandpa gets up off the chair, walks over, wham, with that sledgehammer. How are those two scenes not in that movie? How is Grandma not in that movie? How is... you remember TCM2 at the end when Stretch is doing her death dance at the end? I just think they really missed a great opportunity to do something really spectacular if they would have just used TCM2 as the template, as the framework in terms of its characters, and focused on them, and even introduced grandma, I think it just could have been horrifying. Anyways, enough of that. I probably went way too long, and I apologize. Number 4, again, no VHS release, 2005, from the master himself. I know some of you are going to love it now when I say Mr. Rob Zombie, and I am talking the deleted scene on The Devil's Rejects. It is Dr. Satan Attacks. I absolutely love that scene, man. And the girl, her name, I should have wrote it down. She's Ahsoka now. The girl, the nurse who leans over, and as our deputy, is it Roy? And the girl was, the nurse, not Roy, Ray, I think. Deputy Ray walks over to talk to Sheriff Rydell, and Satan just reaches, Dr. Satan reaches up to her throat. You know the scene, man. It just crushes her throat and everything. She falls on the floor. And, they subdue the good doctor down. And the deputy's just holding her in his arms, man. She's just bled out, man. And I just, how I wish Rob just would have thought for the third piece. I wish he would have just thought a lot differently. I wish he would have brought the film full circle back to the original and just went completely Fulci-esque nuts and just almost comic-like maybe. But reapproach the original film, but having done the first 2 films, if you understand what I'm saying. And let Dr. Satan have his role again. I think that would have been really, really, really freaking cool. But that deleted scene, man, it's a shame it's not in there, because I get why it's not in there, because the whole film itself is grounded in this ultra sun-soaked, sun-bleached reality. But at the same time, it almost seems like they pull Dr. Satan down to reality a little bit by just how he's seen in the bed. And I don't know. I don't know what you do with him in a movie like that. Maybe there's nothing you can do, but it's too bad that scene was dropped out. All right, number 3. I do have a released by Paramount. Probably close around 84 is when the movie came out. From Joseph Zita. It is the 4th, and at the time, thought to be the final concluding chapter in one of the greatest slashers ever, and that was, of course, Friday the 13th. And the deleted scene I'm referring to is the lost ending, which gets a nice little commentary session, I think, from Zito. And it's interesting. They said they were happy to just disband it and go with the ending that they go with, and that's fine. But having seen this lost ending, I don't know, man. There's something about it that just works, man. Trish and Tommy have fallen asleep on the couch, and Rob, was it Rob? His name Rob, the brother looking for his sister, he's dead. Of course, he's been thrown through the windows. He's dead, laying on the floor. They wake up, and she thinks, I'm not sure where the lost scene actually, where the actual theatrical film ends and that scene actually begins, but it's probably like at the end, right? And so she gets up, and some of you have seen it, and she goes upstairs. She tells Tommy to go. The police apparently are across the way, and so she sends him to go get the police. Well, she goes upstairs. She sees something dripping from the ceiling. Can't be good, right? So she goes up to investigate, and she goes into the bathroom, and she knows behind the curtain it's not going to be good. Of course, it's her mom. And it's such an eerie thing, though, because she reaches down and pulls her mom up out of the water, and ultimately her eyes will roll white, which is almost harkens to the Prowler scene, right? But then suddenly Jason, man, without the mask on, just comes up behind her, man, and that's, boom, the lost ending. And I thought, it's really too bad they couldn't have included it, as somehow blended the original, the theatrical ending and that lost ending. It's too bad they couldn't have somehow managed the two together in just a really frightening end, because there is something really creepy about her just holding her mom there in anguish, and then Jason just comes out, and then boom, it's like, dang. So number 3, right? Number 2, one of my most favorite deleted scenes. It's actually technically from the TV cut of the film. First released by Media on VHS. Of course, we are talking about John Carpenter's classic Halloween from 1978. The scene in question is I love the scene with Loomis in front of the board. It's like a panel, a couple guys, and they're basically telling him, man, this is what's happening with Michael, and he just does not agree, and he's just trying to warn him everything he can what's about to be unleashed, and at some point down the road, and they just don't buy into it. And then in frustration, finally gets up, and he just leaves, having taken on the responsibility of looking after him, though. And we know what history lies years later, but he, on his way out, man, he stops in Michael's room, and I love this scene. He walks into his room, and he just looks at Michael's, just of course staring out the window, not open, but staring out the window, and he's like, "You fooled him, haven't you, Michael? You fooled him, but you haven't fooled me." And it's just such a great moment between those two. It's too bad that, and I get it, I know why it was filmed in order to flesh out the runtime for the TV cut. But it's too bad that it doesn't work. It wasn't worked into maybe a director's extended cut, worked into the film, I guess, more polished looking. But I do love it, and I think there is an interesting bookend between what he says to Michael in that room and ultimately what he'll say to him at the end of part 2, which is, Michael, it's finished, boom, right, and the hospital goes. Absolutely love it, love it, love it, love it. Such a great moment between the good old doctor and the guy he'll chase for an entire franchise. And finally, this one may be a surprise. Number 1, first release, I do believe it's the best I could get. Columbia, around 1980. The film is from 1977, though. And the deleted scene in question is Roy on the Job. It is a Steven Spielberg film, so we'll bookend this. Right, outside looking in as a Spielberg film, and just a few years after this, we are, of course, talking about Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I know it's not like straight out horror or anything like that, but there are some terrifying moments in this movie, man. When the child abduction scene is pretty terrifying. But the scene in question is a deleted scene, and there's a few in here, actually. I'll only just talk about one. But they involve Roy, Richard Dreyfuss's character. And they really do a lot to just enhance his character overall. But the scene in question is he's on a job site. There's like 2 miles worth of power lines have been basically stripped bare. And, and they think it's one thing, and he knows, well, it has to be something else. But I mean, the scene is really cool because it really puts on display just how incredibly bright he was in his line of work, in his job. Like, we really in the movie only get like a little bit because his descent into madness, comes pretty quick after the experience of the saucer. And it's too bad that scene wasn't in. I don't think it's in any one of there's a bunch of cuts on this thing, but I don't think that scene in question ever gets its way back in here, or gets in here. And it's sort of too bad because it really does establish just who he is prior to this paranormal experience that just drives him off a cliff, right? Will send him searching for the Devil's Tower. I have to say, this movie poster, the original theatrical poster, if you remember, just the road leading up to Devil's Tower, and with the starry sky and stuff, that just lit my imagination like few posters did when I was a little kid. And that it's such a great scene with him, and it's kind of a long scene actually, involving Dreyfuss. And what's really cool is if you have the subtitles on, you can hear a lot of the chaos on the radio, people calling in police reports and stuff of havoc going on. So this stuff is happening all over the place in this vicinity. It's not just in one certain locale, but they're just like the ultimate mischiefs, man. These aliens, man, they're just creating havoc and loads of mischief, which is really cool. But there's also a barbecue scene, which I think follows right after half his face is red burned, which is a really cool scene too. But I just, I never thought about watching the deleted scenes on this until this, just a day or so ago. And I was really surprised at that one. And so definitely worth checking out, especially if you're a fan of this. And this was well worth the purchase. And this wasn't even that much, actually. The 4K. I had never owned, surprisingly, I've never owned it in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And it is a movie that really, really influenced me a lot as a kid. So anyways, Crazy 5's, deleted scenes. Ran a little bit longer than I wanted to, but I rambled on a little bit on certain points. But for number one again, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Roy on the job. Loomis being put on notice, Halloween, number two. Number three, Friday 4, The Lost Ending. Gotta see it if you've never seen it. It's pretty creepy. Dr. Satan Attacks, Devil's Rejects, number 4. Number 5, Leatherface. Grandpa, man. Bookends, the alternate opening, alternate ending, man. If you've never seen it, it is worth. It's probably on YouTube, I would imagine. Worth checking out. And then, of course, Quint running havoc of that kid playing the flute in that story. It's just and how he treats that Salvatore, who doesn't want to have anything to do with going out on that boat. I don't blame him, man. I wouldn't have either. So there you go, Crazy 5's, deleted scenes. This is definitely one I'll probably go back to somewhere off in the future when I have more time to actually go through my collection and look at more of these deleted scenes, but they are worth looking at. There is some gems in there to be had, for sure, and as always, we end these things off with, Go Bills.
This is not a dream. Not a dream.
We might be useful to you.